What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken. Today, guys, we are here to talk about a Western film that Arrow Video has put out on Blu-ray with the new 2K scan of the original camera negative, and that is the Shootist. So this is actually due out on March the 12th, so this upcoming week. But I wanted to give my thoughts on this one because I watched it today and I rather enjoyed it. And I feel like everybody this week's going to be talking about the James Cameron titles. And I don't want this one to get lost in the shuffle because I think it's a good release. And I'm going to let you guys know why here in a second. But before we get into it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We talk physical media on this channel, Blu-rays, 4Ks, owning the movies that you love, all that stuff there behind me. So if you like that kind of thing, hit the subscribe button. Also comment down below if you've seen The Shootist. What's your thoughts on it? Let me know. Is this one of your favorite Westerns? Let me know in that comment section below. Also, let me know if you're going to purchase this. I will be leaving the purchase link down below in the description if you guys want to use that. And then turn on bell notifications for all future videos as well. I will be reviewing the James Cameron titles when they come out. I'm going to take my time with them, though. When I get them in, I'm going to watch them. I'm going to get my thoughts out there. But we're talking The Shootist today because this is a Western film from 1976. It's directed by John Siegel, who I would say notoriously directed Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood. That's probably, I would say, his most notorious film. And he directed some other Clint Eastwood movies like The Beguiled and also I think Coogan's Bluff he directed. So he was a pretty notable filmmaker from that time period. I think the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s was probably his heyday of filmmaking. But he definitely directed a lot of films, a lot of television and stuff. And he directed The Shootist. This is also an adaptation of Glendon Stewart's, and I probably mispronounced that name, but it was an adaptation of his novel, The Shootist. And this has an entire special feature on that author and talking about all the books that he wrote. And also talking about his son, how his son actually took part in writing the screenplay for this as well. So his son actually helped adapt his dad's novel, which is pretty cool. But that goes into all of his books and all of his books that got adapted to movies. He had a ton of books that got adapted to movies. But starring John Wayne, guys, sorry guys, I'm already tripping with my words. That's the significant thing about this film is this is John Wayne's last ever starring role and last ever role period in a film. He would, of course, tragically die 3 years later from cancer, which he was battling while making this film, or I think he had battled it and got over it, and he was well during the filming of this movie. Then it came back, and then he died 3 years later. And that's interesting because the movie itself is about an older gunfighter that comes back into this town and meets with his doctor friend, who's played by James Stewart, which we'll get to in a second. And he tells him that he has cancer and he's dying, so he lives out his last days in this town. And it's a very emotional film. It's a beautiful film, actually. It's a character-driven film. This is not an action movie. Don't go into this thinking, even though it's called The Shootist, that there's a ton of shootouts and there's a ton of action. It's a slower movie. It's a more character-driven movie. It really focuses on the characters and the relationships and the emotions, the newer relationships, the past relationships. Now, there are some gunfighting moments because the entire plot of this movie kind of centers around that everybody's finding out that he is dying of cancer, and he's this notorious gunman that has gunned down a lot of people in his career, and there are some people that's trying to swoop in and take him out while he's weak. So there are some moments where people are trying to attack him and he has to defend himself and show that he's still badass despite the fact that he has this cancer that's eating him inside. And that sounded weird, eating him inside, but that's what cancer does, right? It's awful. It's a vicious thing. But let's get into who's in this movie. You got John Wayne, of course, in this film. You got Lauren Bacall, who I really liked her character in this film quite a bit. She kind of plays the caretaker. She's the owner of the hotel that he's staying at, and she's kind of cold at first, and then she warms up to him later on in the film. They have a nice little... There's some romantic energy there, but they don't fully explore the romance between the two of them. But there's definitely something there between the two of them, which I actually thought to be a pretty sweet aspect of the film. You also have her son, who is played by Ron Howard. I had no idea Ron Howard was even in this film, but I thought it was really cool that he was. Of course, you know, Opie from Andy Griffith, Happy Days, the famous director that's directed a ton of movies now. And you also got James Stewart in this film, who I didn't even realize was in the film either, even though he's on the cover with, you know, Ron Howard as well. But The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is probably my favorite Western of all time. So him just being in the movie, and this was kind of the reunion between him and John Wayne after 14 years since Liberty Valance back in 1962, definitely helped me like this film and enjoy this film a lot more than I probably would have otherwise, because this honestly feels like a spiritual sequel to Liberty Valance. It feels like if the characters from Liberty Valance, if they would have both made it out of that film. I know John Wayne dies at the end of Liberty Valance. That's the whole point of the movie. I get that. But if they were both alive, this feels like where they would be at in their lives. Even though, you know, James Stewart was a lawyer in Liberty Valance, and then in this one, he's a doctor. So it's two different professions. That's beside the point. It just feels like this is where their friendship would be now at this point. So it's kind of fun to get to see John Wayne come back into this town to get checked out by James Stewart, and to them kind of rekindle that friendship. Both, it feels like in the actual movie and also off screen, the two actors just kind of rekindling their friendship with each other, and they just have great chemistry together. So I definitely appreciate that as well. You know, James Stewart's not in this movie a ton, so don't go thinking it's like they're teaming up and they're shootouts together and all that. That's not really what happens. James Stewart is the doctor that diagnoses him with cancer, and then he's kind of taken out of the movie for a good portion of it, comes back in towards the end. But he's in it probably 10 to 15 minutes. But the moments that he's in it are very important and really add a lot of weight to the film. So, yeah, The Shootist, guys, I enjoyed this film a lot. Like, I was actually kind of shocked at how much I enjoyed this. This honestly is maybe one of my favorite Westerns now. Really enjoyed this movie because it is such a deep character study, and I honestly think it's one of John Wayne's best performances. Like, I just think that I like the older John Wayne. I haven't seen a lot of John Wayne, guys. I've probably seen 5 or 6 of his films, but I've seen some younger John Wayne, I've seen some in the middle John Wayne, and I've seen some older John Wayne, and I think he's really good. He really, you know, I feel like just got better as an actor as he went throughout his career. And this was probably the peak of what he could do as an actor in this film, because I just thought he was so great, just bringing a lot of emotion to this character. So, but that's the actual movie. Let's talk about the 2K restoration by Arrow. I thought this was beautiful. I thought they did an excellent job on the 2K. You know, of course, I would have loved to have seen this movie in 4K. It would have looked beautiful in 4K, if I'm being honest, but we can't expect everything to be put out on 4K. So I get, you know, why Arrow Video didn't do it. I don't know how popular this movie is either. Like, this would have made a cool, like, box set release with a bunch of booklets and stuff on the inside, but I guess they just didn't feel like it would sell as well. Yeah, it looks good, though. The 2K scan looks really good. They really cleaned up the image a lot, and a lot of it looks really beautiful. There's a couple of shots that are a little, you know, you could just tell they couldn't fully restore it, but I enjoyed the look of it overall. Thought it looked really nice. One thing I want to call out is, because this movie is in 1976, the filmmaking style was a little different in the 70s as opposed to like the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, which is where you're used to seeing James Stewart and John Wayne. There's this tracking shot, like when they're walking out of the doctor's office, that I just couldn't help but think to myself, wow, this is so cool to get to see these classic actors, John Wayne and James Stewart, with these more modern filmmaking techniques. I just thought was really cool. It's just something I noticed, and I was like, wow, that's John Wayne and James Stewart in this like more modern filmmaking technique. That's really awesome. So I really enjoyed that. But the 2K scan looked really good. You also, the audio, guys, you got the original lossless mono audio, so it sounded good to me. You know, you can only do so much to clean up those tracks. The score in this movie is absolutely fantastic. I thought it was a great score. And then getting into the packaging, we'll do a little unboxing here, even though I just did an unboxing of this in my recent Physical Media Lives episode, but we'll zoom in. You can read the synopsis. You can read all the special features if you want, the casting list, all the specs at the bottom. Take it out of the slipcover. You got the classic poster right there. On the back, you got all the features and the same material as the back of the case. On the inside, guys, you actually have a poster and it's double-sided, which, you know, is pretty much a staple for Arrow Video. You also got a nice booklet in here with a lot of information, a lot of writings on the making of the movie. And then you got some cool lobby cards in here as well, you know, with the image of the classic poster on the back. So some good you know, materials, bonus materials on the inside of the case. And then of course this is reversible cover art, so you flip that and you got the newly commissioned artwork by Arrow Video, which I honestly think, I don't know who did the artwork to this, but this is fantastic artwork. Like, this is some of my favorite artwork that Arrow Video has done recently, for sure. I think it's beautiful. But getting into the special features real quick, guys, you have a brand new audio commentary here by filmmaker and critic Howard S. Berger. So I didn't listen to the audio commentary because I was watching the movie for the first time. I'm not going to listen to the audio commentary. But you actually have 4 new special features here, interviews and featurettes and all that kind of stuff. And they're actually really great, and they're really lengthy. So I'd say it's probably about 2 hours of new special features when you combine all those together. But you have The Last Day, a new visual essay by film critic David Carnes, who it's basically just a film essay on, you know, the film The Shootist. And then we got A Man Making Moments, a new interview with Western author C. Courtney Joyner, which is a great feature. This is about 40 minutes long, and they do a deep dive into the author of the book that this movie is based on, and then they just kind of go into his entire career and all the books that he's written and all the film adaptations, and then they just kind of do the Shootist centerpiece, just talking about the adaptation of the book and everything that went into that. And that's a great special feature. Then we got Laments of the West, a new appreciation of Elmer Bernstein's score. So that's who did the score. Great job on the score, by film historian and composer Neil Brand. And then you have Contemplating John Wayne, the Death of a Cowboy, a new visual essay by filmmaker and critic Scout Tafoya. So that's about John Wayne, just his career, and, you know, this being his last movie and everything. And that's an interesting one as well. Let me call this out real quick, because they don't just go into the positive aspects of John Wayne as an actor. They go into the more darker territory, the stuff that he's been criticized for over the years, like his racism and his views on politics and all that stuff, which, you know, I don't want to get into all that kind of stuff, but they don't just talk about John Wayne in a positive light. They go into the more negative stuff of his career that people would criticize him about. So I thought that was interesting that they tackled it in that way. Then you got The Shootist, The Legend Lives On, which is an archival featurette, which I imagine was on the DVD, because I don't believe this has another Blu-ray release. I think this is the first time this movie was put out on Blu-ray, at least in the States. Maybe it was overseas, but at least in the States, it's its first time on Blu-ray. And you get theatrical trailers, image gallery, you know, a reversible sleeve featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Juan Esteban Rodriguez. Okay, that's the artist. Great job, Juan, on the artwork here. But yeah, guys, The Shootist on Blu-ray from Arrow Video. I highly recommend this one. You know, it's got great features, 2 hours of special features, and it's John Wayne's last film, and I think it's an excellent film. And you got James Stewart in here, and this has to be one of his last films as well, because 1976, like, he was on his way out of acting by this point. He'd already had such an incredible career. But I highly recommend The Shootist. Like I said, I will link it down below, especially if you're a Western fan. If you like this genre, I think you'll enjoy this movie, especially if you like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. You'll enjoy this movie. But thank you all for watching my review of The Shootist. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on those bell notifications for all future videos and reviews, and follow me on all my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.